Bhagavad-Gita chapter 9, the most confidential knowledge. And today we're focused on text 24, although text, really beginning with text 20 and through this verse and then tomorrow's verse is one area of subject matter related to demigod worship and worship that aims too low, is not aimed at the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna. So text 24, Aham hi sarva yogyanam bhukta cha prabhuriva cha natu mam abhijananti tatvenatas chavanti te. Translation: I am the only enjoyer and master of all sacrifices. Therefore, those who do not recognize my true transcendental nature fall down. We can repeat that a little at a time. I am the only enjoyer and master of all sacrifices. Therefore, those who do not recognize my true transcendental nature fall down. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Here it is clearly stated that there are many types of yoga performances recommended in the Vedic literature, but actually all of them are meant for satisfying the Supreme Lord. Yoga means Vishnu. In the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad-Gita, it is clearly stated that one should only work for satisfying yoga or Vishnu. The perfectional form of human civilization, known as Varnashram Dharma, is specifically meant for satisfying Vishnu. Therefore, Krishna says in this verse, I am the enjoyer of all sacrifices because I am the Supreme Master. Less intelligent persons, however, without knowing this fact, worship demigods for temporary benefit. Therefore, they fall down to material existence and do not achieve the desired goal of life. If, however, anyone has any material desire to be fulfilled, he had better pray for it to the Supreme Lord, although that is not pure devotion, and he will thus achieve the desired result. So in this chapter, Krishna is detailing, it's called the most confidential knowledge, revealing his own stature to Arjuna and to ourselves as it says in this verse, the only enjoyer and master of all sacrifices, and in fact as the supreme truth, the supreme being, as I'm fond of repeating a statement by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, that he said, there is no second existence. There is only Krishna, Vishnu. Krishna and his energies involve everything that exists. There is no second existence. There's no competition. The Christians have Satan, and I think Muslims also have Satan, but who opposes the Supreme. No, this is all, it's basically made up. So that's the nature of this chapter. And in this series of verses, beginning with number 20 through 25, Krishna is describing those who worship or seek pleasure, seek fulfillment by worshiping either material energy in the grossest form, or in the Varnashram system, in the Vedic system, engaging in sacrifices, elaborate sacrifices, and praising, worshiping various demigods for to fulfill their material desires. The one form of demigod worship that I know of Srila Prabhupada saying, well, that's all right, was praying to Lord Shiva, since Lord Shiva is the greatest devotee, and he can help us in a great way, in very many ways, to enhance our service to Krishna, because Lord Shiva himself is the greatest devotee. However, we have to recognize also that the Vedic literature, most of it involves sacrifices, rituals, system for achieving sense gratification. This is Krishna's mercy on the fallen souls, on we, fallen souls, to allow us to play Krishna in his mercy and his desire to have us love him as we should, as is our very nature. We're like errant sons who go away from the father and go away from the family and rebel. And that is exactly correct. The bulk of the Vedic literature is designed to gradually channel us back, channel fallen human beings back in the direction of devotional service, loving association with Krishna. And that's done by regulating the impetus, regulating the desire and the activity aimed at gaining sense gratification. And that's why the Vedas have so many rules, regulations, very specific sacrifices, very difficult sacrifices, which in fact all of our acharyas in our line have said these sacrifices are not possible in this age. There are hardly any, if any, Brahmins, qualified Brahmins, who can properly chant the mantras, the shlokas involved in these sacrifices. The amount of wealth required for some of these sacrifices is astronomical. In short, in this age, as Lord Chaitanya revealed, the sacrifice recommended for this age is Harinam Sankirtan, Hari Kirtan, Hari Katha, the discussion of Hari Katha and the association of devotees, just like we have right here in this room and in this wonderful location of Krishna Balaram Mandir. As it says here, the less intelligent persons try, even in this age, to worship the demigods. And to what extent they're actually pleasing a demigod is subject to challenge. They're certainly not able to properly execute the sacrifices that the Vedas specify for their specific goals. They can, however, I imagine out of sentiment, perhaps slightly please a demigod, but that's subject to question. That's certainly subject to challenge. We see all over, especially all over India, so many people involved at the Shiva temples in South India. My wife and I just spent a month in South India, touring many places. Many of the old ancient temples, Padmanabhi Swami Temple, the Ranganath, Srirangapuram, Madhya Ranganath, all three of the Rangaji temples, Ranganathji temples on the Kaveri River. And we see many people worshiping Lord Shiva, Saraswati, Surya. And it was quite interesting to see, and certainly these folks are very sincere, and they're actually quite pious. But the poor fund of knowledge in this age of Kali is such that they clearly don't realize that all of the benefits that they could ask for are going to be provided ultimately by Yogya, by Vishnu, by Sri Krishna. Due to a poor fund of knowledge, they're thinking, well, I want this specific thing. I want my son to have a great education and in college, so I'm going to ask Goddess Saraswati to assist in that regard. Or I want great wealth or whatever. But it's always interesting to read this, that as Srila Prabhupada says here, if, however, anyone has any material desire to be fulfilled, he had better pray for it to the Supreme Lord, although that is not pure devotion. And thus he will achieve the desired result. So as the old saying says, man proposes, God disposes. If man proposes intently and sincerely and with humility and with determination, and then it's very likely that he can work and achieve whatever it is he wishes. But that is not pure devotion, and it is still, the individual still dwelling in the realms of death, of birth and death. And the whole point of the Vedic literatures, the whole point of the conclusive, Hare Krishna, thank you, of the conclusive Vedic literatures, Brahma Sutras, Vedanta Sutra, and then the commentary on Vedanta Sutra, which is Srimad Bhagavatam. The whole conclusion, the whole point is to bring all of the souls back in the direction of pure devotional service. It is our very nature. It is our very, actually it's the basis of even our consciousness, our ability to hear, our ability to see right now, all of our abilities are based on our consciousness in this lifetime. And what is that consciousness? That consciousness is the spark of Krishna. We are, that is, Srila Prabhupada has said, the consciousness is the symptom of the soul, and it is the nature of the jiva soul. So when we say that God is always with us, Krishna is always with us because we are genuinely a part of him. Of course, he is complete without us, so we need to stay humble. But at every moment, this consciousness right now is, my hearing right now is also Krishna's hearing. My speaking is also Krishna's speaking. I hope it's not too, I hope my version of Krishna speaking is not too distorted. In fact, that's what we all pray for, that we are able to purely reflect, purely receive the mercy of Krishna, the mercy of the spiritual master, by accurately and with as great an intensity as possible, representing Krishna, representing the spiritual masters, the acharyas who have come before us. That the yagyas, the specific sacrifices recommended, prescribed in the Vedas for human beings under the ideal human society, human civilization, varnashram, that they are not possible to be done in this age does not mean that the varnashram system is not, in a very real sense, in effect. I remember last year one of my god sisters gave a Bhagavatam class here one morning, and she pointed out and gave so many examples of how the varnashram, especially the varnas, are very predominant, even in the degraded Kali Yuga human society. Not that the bulk of human society recognizes it, but you have the intellectuals, the philosophers, the even some of the scientists who are basically on the level of Brahmins. And then you have the military, the police, and sometimes people say the politicians. I don't know about politicians. I don't think they're Kshatriyas. I think they're Mlechas and Yavanas. But, but you have the apparent Kshatriya class. And obviously you have the Vaishya class. That is so predominant in the current predominant civilization in the world, which unfortunately is Western civilization. And unfortunately, so much of India is trying to imitate that rather than reject it. I mean, of course, it can be incorporated within a godly system. But anyway, there are so many Vaishyas and then Shudras. But ultimately, the quality of practically all of these people is less than Shudra because of the pursuits of material well-being, and the four faults with which human beings must put up with, and which we express: the having imperfect senses. An example of which, I can't see through that wall. In fact, my eyes can't even see themselves. I have to have a mirror to even get an idea of what my eyes look like. That's imperfect senses. Tendency to make mistakes, which obviously is connected to the imperfect senses and the poor fund of knowledge. Pardon? Oh, well, the cheating propensity I was going to save for last because that's everywhere. We see that everywhere. That's the what there's besides cheating: imperfect senses, tendency to make mistakes. Tendency to be an illusion. All of it's connected, and you can hardly separate those things. And the cheating propensity is so powerful throughout the world. We walk out on the street here and we see it. But we have to deal with that in this life, and the Varna ashram system is ideal human society, as it says here in the purport. Srila Prabhupada says in the purport. Because it's not, we can't do all the Vedic sacrifices. We can't do any of them other than Sankirtan Yajna, which is called out specifically in the Vedas, in Gopala Tapani Upanishad and several of the Upanishads And of course throughout Srimad Bhagavatam and the different Puranas, Sankirtan and the praise and chanting, singing of the holy names is called out specifically, and specifically for this age. So we can't, but the fact that the varnashram system actually, or at least the varnas, and to some degree the ashrams as well, we have student life, and then household life, and then retired life, and really there's very little renounced life. None of it is renounced to the degree that it should be. But that doesn't mean that we give up on it. Srila Prabhupada said that was what he was unfortunately leaving undone, was reestablishing an appropriate representation of Varnashram civilization in this Kali Yuga. And we've all heard of the 10,000 year, the golden age of Kali Yuga, inaugurated by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his 6 Goswamis and the other associates, and which has been carried forward by particularly Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, and our own Srila Prabhupada. And so this Varnashram system for the Kali Yuga, we don't know what form it can take, but we know that it's going to need to be substantially based on rural communities, cow protection, production of food production, and prasadam distribution, and in the cities, in the hellish cities, the Harinam, Sankirtan, and the constant recitation in every area possible of Hari Kirtan, of Hari Katha, subjects of Krishna consciousness, subject about Krishna's pastimes, and such. Does anyone have any comments, additions, questions, corrections?
Regarding Varna Shandharma, how is that the Varna Shandharma that's...
Oh, microphone, yes.
Yeah, because sometimes in the scriptures, I read that some Kshatriyas ate meat, some people got intoxicated. That was in the Varnashram system. So I was just wondering if that is a system that will be included if in the future the Varnashram Dharma is established.
Well, I don't.
Just thinking about something.
I don't think that the International Society for Krishna Consciousness will open distilleries or slaughterhouses. In fact, we can be quite certain that that's not going to be the case. There were allowances. Ooh. All living beings in the material substance, in the material realm, are subject to the 3 modes of nature. And there are some allowances in the Vedas for that, for those who, Srila Prabhupada said that if one is acting, and it's clear that if one is acting according to his dharma, based on the modes of nature, there is not sin involved. However, obviously there's sin involved in killing animal. And, we used to say, okay, Kshatriyas go and hunt so they can practice killing, because their job is to keep society properly organized, and frequently that involves killing bad elements of society. I don't think we're not talking about a system that's going to promote any of those activities.
Of course, I understand that, but when you read the Mahabharata, when you read the Bhagavad-Gita, it says like, for example, Pandu or Ram, many different like god incarnations or God's companions, they used to do hunting. I know that it's not a promotion of
Right.
but will they allow that? Like, for example, here in ISKCON is very strict for the principles. So when I hear this thing about Varnashram system, I was just wondering if it would be like permission for certain things.
Well, who's going to be the police?
I don't know. I'm just saying.
Who's going to the ideas that we promote? Srila Prabhupada's aim was to make Brahmins. But he said actually by this process, by following the process of Krishna consciousness, that we have, that comes from the Acharyas and to us from Srila Prabhupada, we will become more. He said, you have all come from Malechas and Yavanas, from outside of the Varnashram system, from lower classes, lower births. But by this process, you will become more than Brahmins. I can't answer the question because it's almost irrelevant in the sense that we don't know what the weather is going to be a week from now. We don't know how things will take shape. We can't know. All we know is that we have a simple process of Krishna consciousness, which we're trying to spread worldwide. It's not easy. Simple it's not the same as easy. Otherwise, we'd all, be in Vaikuntha already. But it's a simple process, and that's what we're focused on. As far as details of that sort, I can't even venture a guess, but I think it's not relevant to our concerns at this time. It might be of intellectual interest. But yeah.
Yeah, maybe my question was not asked properly, but what I meant to say is that when sometimes they speak about Varnashram Dharma, I understand if the movement wants to make Vaishnavas different, but to establish a Varnashram in the classical sense, it would look like a bit contradictory to being Vaishnava, because you're not following the same.
ISKCON's system and aim is to train Brahmins. Naturally, there are going to be others, and generally that's going to be military type, and that I don't want to get into a quagmire discussing this because it's totally speculative what the future will look like in this regard, in the future of the golden age of Kali Yuga. It may closely resemble what you read in the Shastra, but it may not. We do know that it's going to be based on a Brahminically based civilization. It's going to be, it will necessarily be rurally, agriculturally based with a lot of valuable additions by the science that has created the systems of manufacturing and that have made life, have raised the living standard of so many people in the world. We don't reject that. We reject the focus on living standards as the purpose of life. That's what we reject. Any comments or questions? Please.
Speaking my
The Kshatriyas and the kings were not only free to hunt but also required to hunt for enhance their skills in military training. So the killing of animals was a part of that exercise. The earlier kings were also trained to aim on hearing a sound, Shabd Bhedi. I mean, without seeing the target, but only hearing from the target, he could, like Dashrath, he could shoot listening to sound. So that was part of their training, but I don't think they were ever into meat eating. They were into killing for the enhancing the skills and nothing else.
I read that Bhima is the meat.
thanks. As Govind was saying that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give us the Krishna prema. So we are chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Ram.
Hare Hare.
We are totally absorbed in Krishna consciousness, thinking that just like in Bhagavad-Gita also Krishna says, Manmana Bhava Matmakto Madhyajim Namaskuru, Mangvaisa Satyam Tityani. Always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, offer your offenses unto me. Thus you will come back to me without fear. And the purport he says, there are so many different forms of just like Vara Avatar, Narasimha Avatar and Ram Avatar. So you don't have to go in any other avatar. You just concentrate on Shyam Sundar Krishna. So sometimes we are diverted with so many other avatars and we put our mind on those things instead of concentrating on Krishna consciousness, on Shyam Sundar. So can you comment something?
Well, we Lord Chaitanya and the Acharyas, including, of course, Srila Prabhupada, they made it so simple. I mean, of course, if you get into studying the writings of the Goswamis, it is just so voluminous and astonishing that the exposition, the description, but what all of that is, all that analysis and that revelation, what it amounts to is describing the simple experience of souls, of pure souls, pure devotees, who have become fully purified and have become pure devotees and are in intense personal relationships with the Lord. And that, I mean, it's a simple. Again, it's simple. It's not easy for us in this age, but we have so many books, so many sources. I mean, now with the revolution in electronics, we can have the entire body of literatures from even from Madhvacharya onwards. And the Goswamis and all of the acharyas in our line, we can have all of that on an iPad, right there. Once it's downloaded, you don't even need the internet. You just need to be able to recharge it. We have all of that. We have the association of so many devotees, aspiring devotees like ourselves, and some of whom, as another old saying goes, the cream will rise to the top, and they will help us all very much. We all help each other very much. I'm just astonished at all of I feel almost the boost we get here in Vrindavan. So many wonderful devotees, and this in this Krishna Balaram Mandir and in the Krishna Balaram, the ISKCON community here.
We say hearing is very important. So what we are hearing, we should speak about that one. But we hear something and we speculate and say something. So sometimes it is difficult that what we are hearing and what we are thinking and what we are speaking. That speculation, sometimes we do some speculation. So the concentration, what we are hearing, purpose hearing is very important. So what we are hearing, we should recite that one. But instead of reciting that one, we are doing something different.
Well, I find that in my personal view, the greatest, well, it's not even great, but a threat to our progress as an organization, but as a body of devotees. The biggest threat are little subtle changes from what Srila Prabhupada left us and what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta left us. And we've seen a few of these popping up here and there. I don't want to get real specific here, but I mean, it's the old saying that any advanced civilization can only be brought down from within. So we want to be on guard for speculations or inventions, thinking, because someone can get carried away thinking, well, I think Srila Prabhupada really meant this. That I don't want to, again, I don't want to get into examples because it would seem political, and it would end up political. But we have to be on guard for these things. There's a big controversy, of course, about the editing done to some of the books. That's a big concern. There's some concerns about changes in the system of deity worship that Srila Prabhupada very specifically left us, even down to the very simple arti ceremony. There's changes that are contrary to Srila Prabhupada. They're seen in some places. I think that's a more of a concern to maintain that purity coming through, because the whole point is that Srila Prabhupada was the transparent via media from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. Similarly, all the way back, Madhvacharya, all the way back to Sri Chaitanya, Madhvacharya, Lord Brahma. Krishna says, of course, in Bhagavad-Gita that it appears the science appears to be lost from time to time, so it comes renewed. But there is, in fact, the unbroken line of disciplic succession, all the way back to Lord Brahma. Microphone.
In this verse, in the purport of translates, the Varnashrama Dharma to satisfy Vishnu. But during the discussion of Ramananda Rai and Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Rai, they are discussing. Mahaprabhu rejects the idea by Varnashrama Dharma.
I'm sorry.
He rejects the idea of Varnashrama.
Varnashrama.
Yes, ultimately,
But it is conflict.
yeah. Ultimately, it's a material consideration. It's to bring materially infected souls to gradually purify them. But the means are material, but they have a spiritual aim. So in the sense, we don't focus on, is this a Brahmin, is this a Kshatriya? We don't focus on that. We focus on Krishna consciousness. We focus on our sadhan, or association with the other devotees. And so there can be an undue focus on this social consideration, but Srila Prabhupada did say that that's the part of his mission that he was unable to complete, and that is to get some form of a varnashram society rolling, to get it started, that he wanted to reestablish some form appropriate for the age and appropriate for the diminished intellectual capacity of all of the people present on the planet at this time. Diminished intellectual and physical, and just the general activities of Kali. In the Kali inserting herself itself into so many aspects of life in this day and age, and we have to be on guard at all times about that.
There are 2 points I would like to make. One is the varnashram, from my understanding is that the
That's good. Just a bit forward.
my understanding is that things are different now compared to what it used to be.
It's okay. You are close to him.
So in terms of varnashram, nowadays, because for a functioning society you need people with different type of abilities. Like Kshatriya in the olden times is not a fighter anymore, but it is more like an administrative work someone is doing. Similarly, Vaishya is more related to the business aspect of running an organization. And there are people who are good at doing service, and they are, in the olden times, they are the so-called Shudra. So, and the Brahmanical people are the ones, those who could teach. So the things are different, but for our society to function, you need all 4 types of people. So that is the Varnashram from my point of view. That's my understanding is. Nowadays, it has changed from what it used to be to now in the present day society. That is one point I wanted to make. And the other point I wanted to understand, Prabhuji's comment was, did you mean that only to worship Sham Sundar and not any other God incarnation? That's what you meant?
It is in purport 1865, you can read in the purport. Prabhupada has written in the purport, you read that purport.
Right, but that refers to the demigods, not to the...
Even to the, you can see 1865.
Which verse is it?
1865.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
In
Manmano.
that purport. Bottom section of that purport. This section.
Yeah, I've got it here. The Lord has multiple forms such as Vishnu, Narayan, Rama, Varaha, etc. But a devotee should concentrate his mind on the form that was present before Arjuna. Concentration of the mind on the form of Krishna constitutes the most confidential part of knowledge, and this is disclosed to Arjuna because Arjuna is the most dear friend of Krishna's.
But on the other hand, in Mahaprabhuji's, devotees, Murari Gupta,
Prabhupada has mentioned this at many places, including Krishna also, what is mentioned here. You can ask the pair of Prabhupada.
But it's good that you pointed it out. But the other thing is that we know what Mahaprabhu associates. Murari Gupta, we know the example of Murari Gupta, and again the brother of Rup and Sanatan, we know that they were, Anup or Vallabh, they were devotees of Brahma, and Mahaprabhu asked them, in case of Murari Gupta, but ultimately when he could not focus his attention on Krishna, then Mahaprabhu, he hugged him and he
Mahaprabhu gave the examples.
Right.
He gave the examples, but the constitution here, Prabhupada is giving that we should constitute.
Right. But
Our Acharya, we have to follow our Acharya, whatever Acharya is. Prabhupada knew what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has told us.
Right.
He knew everything, but he gave the final this thing in Bhagavad-Gita as it is, so we have to follow it.
It's, I have a very dear old friend, long-time friend, who's a dedicated Ram Bhakta. He's a Vaishnava. He's American. And I know he's a Vaishnava. And I think, this sort of a concept, you could get into almost a sectarian argument about it, which is pointless. It's, in the ultimate issue, yes. Srila Prabhupada says, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta says, yes, the form of Krishna with his flute, that is the ultimate form of the Lord. And everything emanates from that form. But that does not his emanations are him, especially his personal emanations. Ram, Balaram, even to an extent Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is compared to yogurt, whereas Krishna is the cream and milk. But I don't. It should not be a bone. I don't think it should be a bone of contention, because my old dearest friend, Ram Bhakta, and he's in a sense he's my God sibling. He's not a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, obviously, but it's just like all of us in this room. Some may have a
Just like we read in Kumbh Mela, there were so many people there doing different things, but the aim is that we want to serve Krishna. We want to serve the Lord.
right.
There so many people are there, and everybody want to come and take this special snans,
Yeah.
the special day, because they feel that whatever we will do, it will purify us.
And it's the pure devotee, the Mahabhagavad, sees everyone, even the non-devotees, even the mlechas and yavanas, as serving Krishna. Because serving Krishna directly, as serving Krishna and as Krishna as Narayan, Lakshmi Narayan, Sita Ram, and so on, or serving his energy. Now, of course, that's very difficult for me to digest, to imagine seeing the fellow who's in America. I worked in heavy construction, roads and bridges and dams and things like that for many years, and many that practically, at least half of the people that I worked with, they're hunters. Every autumn they're all excited to go kill deer and elk, and antelope and whatever. They go off in Colorado and Wyoming, and it would be very difficult for me to think in terms of them serving Krishna's energy, but that's what the description of the Mahabhagavad devotee is. And what that gives rise to the one element that's so essential, even in our preaching mission, our teaching, preaching mission, and that is compassion for all of those who, at least all of those who are not inimical. And any other comments or?
Once we accepted ourselves as the disciples of succession, we accept that Krishna is the source of all other incarnations. Sudan Samhita in 5 but very clearly
Mm.
So once we are in this line, we try to divert the mind to other samansh, self-extensions of Lord Krishna. We will be bewildered into something else. So it is better to concentrate on what our acharyas have very clearly told us to do.
Mm-hmm.
They have told us to do is to follow Krishna as sort of your main deity form and to arm form.
Right. I wish I could remember the specific quote of Lord Chaitanya, but he said he was listing the things he had learned from Madhvacharya, from Nimbarka, from Ramanujacharya, and Vishnu Swami. Is that the four sampradayas, and specifically in the Madhva, Brahma Madhva sampradaya, our sampradaya, we're concerned with rasa. The concern is with the actual ultimate relationship of the individual jiva with the Supreme Lord, and where we fit into the Vaikuntha or Goloka scheme, that is pretty much exclusive to the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. The other sampradayas worship the great and powerful and all-pervasive Lord, and as Krishna, as and we see so many of the different names of Krishna all over South India. We the different names, the Vishnu temples of different names of Krishna. Different names of the Lord. A lot of people think, okay, well, different names of Vishnu, because that is the one impersonalist. The beginning of impersonalism becomes that Krishna's another incarnation of Vishnu. Well, not. Vishnu's an incarnation of Krishna. The three Vishnus are incarnations of Krishna, are expansions of Krishna, not incarnations. So, this we could talk this.
When Krishna talks to Uddhava, he says to Uddhava that the devotee should worship. I understand what his point was, that we are following Srila Prabhupada and this Sampradaya, we focus on Krishna. But what if you have, for 3 or 4 lives, cultivated the worship to Ram or Narayan or something else? And so Krishna says to Uddhava that the devotee should worship the form that finds more attractive. So, just wanted to say.
Well, that's that
that we each.
I follow my guru. That's all. I know nothing.
Right.
That's the end of it.
right.
My guru says.
That's all.
I worship Krishna as well. We just say a philosophical point.
Our senses are so imperfect. So we depend on gurus and acharyas for certain things.
Yeah, we can recognize the realities for other people, for other aspiring devotees. The reality may be they may be attracted to Lakshmi Narayan, the grandeur of Lakshmi Narayan, or the Kshatriya in Parthasarathi. We visited the Parthasarathi temple in Chennai, where Krishna as the chariot driver has a mustache. Srila Prabhupada visited there and commented, this is not appropriate. But anyway, that's... All right, I think our time is up. Thank you very much. Thank you for helping me. Hare Krishna.